As Jesus died on the cross, it was a Roman soldier who said these words, "Truly this man was God's son." We wonder, how did this Gentile soldier come to this conclusion? What did this soldier hear or see or experience that led him to make this statement? This soldier could well see that Jesus was flesh and blood, a human being just like him. But here was this soldier referring to Jesus as God's son. Remarkable. Here was a statement from who you would have to say was an unlikely source, that there was something about Jesus that was truly divine. In the context of the cross, declaring Jesus to be God's son was very significant, for this actually made sense of the whole scene. So many others didn't get it, but this soldier seems to have made a discovery. There seemed to be so much more significance here than the average crucifixion. There was so much desperation to kill off Jesus, even though he seemed to have done nothing wrong, except maybe upset a few influential people. Interesting that the words recorded for this soldier in Luke's account were, "Certainly this man was innocent." You could easily imagine this soldier making both these comments, for they fit together perfectly. Certainly this man was innocent, and truly this man was God's son. The Roman soldier had likely witnessed some of the lead-up events. He might have been present when Jesus was flogged, and then part of the group who mocked Jesus by dressing him in purple and putting a crown of thorns on his head, going on to strike him and spit on him. Who knows how much he may have personally participated in all this physical and emotional torture of Jesus. We read that the soldiers even gambled over taking possession of Jesus' clothes. Then this soldier would have witnessed how passers-by scoffed at Jesus, followed by the chief priests and scribes doing the same thing, mocking the words that Jesus had spoken throughout his ministry. There was such an arrogance here, a real refusal to look at themselves and to consider the depths from which they themselves needed to be saved. Again and again, the greatest gift ever given was being tossed aside. They sarcastically challenged Jesus to use his power as a king to come down from the cross. What they should have understood was that this Jesus would not save himself, because his purpose was to stay there precisely to save them. Did our Roman soldier begin to see this? Truly, this man was God's son. Perhaps because he was a Gentile, this soldier, being free of religious baggage, was more open to perceive correctly. We actually read in verse 39 that this soldier's confession of faith was as a result of seeing the way in which Jesus breathed his last, that is, breathed his last breath. So let's look some more at this scene from the Roman soldier's perspective. There seemed to be an unusual level of peace-filled acceptance by Jesus of what was happening to him, as if he had expected it, as if there was some definite purpose here. Jesus didn't raise any particular protest or defence. Jesus refused to lash back at those who were so badly maltreating him. If this was an unjust crucifixion, as seemed to be the case, as was the case, then there just might be a higher purpose. This soldier would have seen many people die in the past, both in battle and execution, But there was something different about this scene. Let us not underestimate the physical torture, and let us not underestimate the emotional trauma of carrying the weight of all the evil racked up in all human history, resulting in such feelings of desolation that Jesus cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Yet still, Jesus seemed to be in charge of proceedings, deliberately acting toward the well-being of others. Also, as the Roman soldier observed what was happening on the cross, Jesus died a lot quicker than was normal for crucifixion, as this suffering could have gone on for days. Abbreviating this would certainly be merciful. Could that last loud cry in verse 37 that Jesus uttered have been heard mercifully by God, who brought a quick end to Jesus' suffering? Could this have been correctly interpreted by this soldier as a divine response to a divine sacrifice? Then, truly, this man was God's Son. This then could all interact with how this Roman soldier was feeling about himself. Where had his loyal allegiance to Roman authority in the name of Caesar led him? To torturing an innocent man and watching powerlessly as Jesus suffered unjustly. This soldier may well and truly have been ready to change his allegiance to a much different sort of king. To one who responded to adversity not with violence, but rather as a servant to others. Truly, this man was God's Son. We trust that for this soldier, this very confession of faith grew into a lifelong personal relationship. There was such creative genius behind all this. God, who wanted to be able to establish proper relationships with all humankind, each of us, determined to come to earth and make this happen. The only way that this could happen. The blockage that exists between humans and God is one of selfish preoccupation on self, on our human side, which is the backdrop for all sin. We see this play out here at the scene of the cross, in all those who would mock Jesus and agree with his crucifixion. To make the point, though it was the middle of the day, darkness covered the earth for 3 hours leading up to Jesus' death. God wanted to put an end to this barrier that blocked the path of reconciliation and relationship with his created beings. And God, in ultimate love, did exactly that. God initiated the required action. The one and only perfect human, God's Son, would become the one and only pure sacrifice, the one and only human qualified to take all our sin, shame and guilt to the cross and vanquish it there. If we make the choice, the correct choice, to take ourselves and our need for mercy to the foot of the cross and leave our burdens there with Jesus, then all this counts for us. We are forgiven, we are set free. The curtain of the temple, which once restricted access to God, has been completely torn open from top to bottom. There is now no barrier that would keep anyone from entering and maintaining a relationship with Jesus. No sin, no failure, no cultural background, no government regulations, no religious dogma, no abusive behaviour, no exclusive rules to ever separate us from God again. Everything has changed. We are God's children, co-heirs with Jesus, who is our brother as well as our Saviour. And with what will happen in just a couple of days, we become part of God's new creation. The tide is turning. A sense of expectancy is building. Though most did not understand it, Jesus did say on a number of occasions that he would rise again and return. Joseph of Arimathea goes against his compatriots and provides his own tomb for Jesus. Loyal women who had followed Jesus noted carefully where this tomb was located with a view to tending to Jesus' body. Soon these women, along with other disciples, will be confronted with some very good news. How will God respond to this perfect sacrifice by his Son? We already know, and we wait with bated breath to celebrate. In the meantime, we need to make sure we have knelt at the foot of the cross, that we have engaged totally with this sacrifice on our behalf, and that we have confessed our faith. We might also say, truly, this man was God's Son.